Seltzer Kings
podcasts.
When did making plans get this complicated? It's time to streamline with WhatsApp, the secure messaging app that brings the whole group together. Use polls to settle dinner plans. Send event invites and pin messages so no one forgets Mom's 60th. And never miss a meme or milestone. All protected with end-to-end encryption. It's time for WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone. Learn more at whatsapp.com.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast? Smart move. Being financially savvy? Smart move. Another smart move? Having State Farm help you create a competitive price when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the personal price plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Real people making bold moves. Unforgettable journeys into life's next chapter. This is the Second Act Podcast.
Every day is a new chance. Mindset on a new path. Anything is possible. Any limit I surpass. Everything is in my grasp. I got tunnel vision with a pickaxe. Life is more fun when you live like there's no strings attached.
We always like to welcome everyone back to the Second Act. We're excited today, John, to have another incredible guest.
Another Coloradan.
Another Coloradan. And for those who aren't following us yet, check out Second Act Movement on all the social channels, and you'll see our amazing guests and all the cool things that we have coming out these days, including our software product.
Yeah, Michael, I'll tell you what, I was in some unique rooms last week and over the weekend, and I kind of mentioned what was coming out and got some raised eyebrows, got some excitement out of this out of this text. So, man, you can't give any nuggets out yet, can you?
It's in stealth mode, so we're not giving too much away, but everyone will be aware of it very soon. And it solves a really interesting market problem for a rather large market. And we know there's a willingness and an ability to pay for this if it solves that problem well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, more to come.
Okay. He doesn't have a top secret clearance, folks, but he is tight-lipped. He's good. Well, man, I'm really excited about our guest today. Michael, I know you and I have talked offline about him, but I think definitely a mover and shaker nationwide. And, man, we're just lucky to have him on the show. So I'm going to introduce him if you don't mind. Our next guest, his name's Adam Contos. So Adam went from being a two-time college dropout to becoming the CEO of Remax Holdings Incorporated, providing that grit, reinvention, and bold leadership can defy expectations. A former SWAT commander and fellow U.S. Marine Corps veteran, Adam blends street-smart tenacity with boardroom vision. Today, he's an entrepreneur, business school professor, and author of Start with a Win, dedicated to helping others break barriers, build momentum, and lead with purpose. We are excited to dig into his story, and welcome to the show, Adam.
Welcome,
Thanks,
Adam.
John. Thanks, Michael. It's good to see you guys.
Yeah, man, it's great to see you. We have met once and talked on the phone once. And man, well, you're on the show. It's kind of like a dream come true for me, having you on here and being able to share with our guests all the things you're doing. But you know, I've heard a portion of your story, Adam, and you know, we of course bonded over the Marine Corps aspect of it. But you know, for those listening that don't have an idea of who you are, let's go back to the beginning and just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you came from and what made you who you are.
Sure. So I grew up in area south of Denver, just a few blocks from where Michael lives, apparently. So small world. And my dad worked for the U.S. government, and Mom stayed at home and helped keep things together there for my brother and my sister and I. And the day after I graduated high school, I was out standing on the yellow footprints, joining the Marine Corps. So I went through that. Very formative years in my life. I actually joined the Marine Reserves, so did a little bit of active duty time, and then went into the reserves, got into law enforcement in my early 20s, went to police academy when I was 21, and started at Cherry Hills Police Department, which is a small police department south of Denver. And then I went to Douglas County Sheriff's Office, where I grew up, got on the SWAT team there, and they thought, this is great. We've got a guy who has got military experience, so let's put him on the SWAT team. Worked undercover narcotics for a couple of years, which was amazing. So we would buy drugs in the afternoon, get search warrants about midnight, and go kick doors all through the night, and then get up and go sleep, go do a little water skiing in the morning, and then go do it all again the next day. So
That's awesome.
it was a great lifestyle for a couple of years. It was a little bit dysfunctional, knowing the narcotic space. But I'll tell you what, it was a great way to learn sales. And my entrepreneurial spirit really loved learning how to buy and sell drugs, a la the DEA undercover narcotics training school. So it was a good time. Got into starting a couple businesses, and then got into the real estate space, teaching real estate agent safety. I had a counterterrorism and homeland security consulting company that I had started. And the real estate industry needed somebody to come and teach people how not to get hurt or killed doing their job. So I took over about half of the market share in that space, and then got hired by Remax and started as a business consultant, worked my way up to CEO. Wow. Retired a few years ago, and now I'm building businesses.
That's awesome. I could probably hang with you about to the point where you got to the yellow footprints. Your yellow footprints and my yellow footprints a little different. You joined after high school. I went after college, but the same uniform, right? Essentially. After that, I can't hang. But tell me, going from the Marine Corps to the police department and then to SWAT, what things were you prepared for and what were you not prepared for?
That's a great question, John. The military was very much command and control, still is. To a great extent. However, I think there's a lot more emotional intelligence in the military now than there was back in the early 90s when I got in there. A lot more about understanding the psychology of human success, but which I really fell in love with. I love you look at the stories of Locus of Control with General Krulak, who was the commandant in the early 90s. They were building the world's greatest fighting force, which the Marine Corps has been known for since, the 1770s, as you're well aware. And the reality is we were taking kids that had been in street fights and farmers throwing bales of hay, grown up in rough environments, and making them into great fighting men. And then we had this switch as soon as technology came around where people were playing video games in their parents' basement. They'd never been in a fist fight in their life. And we had to put a rifle in our hand and tell them to go kill a bunch of the enemy. So the military had to understand how to take this command and control environment and add this can-do attitude and the emotional intelligence in order to execute that. And that is what really carried me through understanding the transition into leadership in the civilian world via law enforcement, obviously. So when you take a look at the challenges we face in the civilian world, you look at the challenges you might face in law enforcement or first responder in that space, or even business for that matter. You have to be able to assess challenges, make sound decisions, and carry through the actions in order to execute those decisions. And that's a lot of the stuff that just isn't taught in this day and age to our emerging supposed leaders in society. So I really think that all played into building the foundation for success for me.
So command and control, formative aspects of the Marine Corps, but then you get into the police force and SWAT, where there's some intuition and adaptability needed in environments that are changing. And from what we've heard from folks who've been in special forces types of units, or in this case, the SWAT teams, there's almost an element of rebelliousness that's inside of the individual to be successful in those roles. And you've also mentioned being an entrepreneur. So how do you juxtapose the Marine Corps formalities with some of the later tracks of your life?
It's interesting you ask that, Michael, because the reality is that, if you look at how your brain's wired, you're challenging the norms. And by challenging the norms, you're labeled somewhat rebellious in society, in the framework of how we want everybody to fit into lockstep in a school classroom or in a business environment. But ultimately, there's more than one way of doing something. And that's what I believe the military, special operations, SWAT, just like in special forces, when you're on a SWAT call, nobody's going to come and save you if things start going sideways. You're the last one coming. So, you've got to be able to take and assess the situation, understand the decision-making concepts around that, and then have the guts and the intuition to execute appropriately within the rules of engagement that you have, the Constitution, the law, what's ethical and right in society, things like that. It's no different in business. It's just that people in business, they stop remembering how to make decisions and execute with a little bit of gusto, a little bit of the guts to go and do something that people say you can't do. So I would say, it's a great juxtaposition. However, peel back all of the fear, the overwhelm that goes with it, and you've got the framework for decision making and implementation.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Adam, but when people tell me I can't do something, that's almost fuel for the fire to try to do it, especially if it's sort of within the boundaries and ethical guidelines of things. But if they're sort of arbitrary rules, rules are made to be broken, and that's how some of the greatest athletes achieve things, some of the greatest business people in the world achieve things. And so I love that response that you gave.
Adam, some people will hear your transition and think, oh, well, Marine Corps to SWAT, that's easy. But I would believe that there would be some surprises in that transition. What's one of the things that stood out to you that you didn't feel carried over or you weren't prepared for when you went into that world?
I would say, and this is a common transitional challenge that a lot of people leaving the military have going into any sort of civilian life. And as law enforcement, you look at it and you go, who's my customer? Your customer is the citizen. So you have a customer there. In the military, who's your customer? It's your commanding officer or whoever's in charge of you at that point. You have to deliver results to them. And in the military, the deliverance of results a lot of times comes with a very, we'll say, lack of customer experience. So there's a lot of cuss words involved, some hardcore yelling and physical effort, and a lot of times blood, sweat, and tears that goes into that. Whereas in the civilian world, whether or not you're law enforcement or the fire services or a nurse or a doctor or who knows what it is, you're still measured by how that person feels that you're dealing with on the back end. And if it's a criminal, you're measured in court because your credibility is questioned based upon your demeanor and your actions.
Yeah, that's good.
Or if it's a victim, you're measured by how they feel on the back end with the victim's rights. And do they feel like you cared? And because you have to, it comes from the heart. And if you're fake, people can see it. So I think it's interesting when you take a look at the difference there. A lot of people in the military are going, yeah, I can go do law enforcement. Well, you can do the command and control part of law enforcement, but law enforcement is about customer experience so much because it's the trust of the community that you have to operate with. That's your currency. And you have the law backing you, but you still have to have that currency in order to make payment to society. And that is an interaction of a relationship. Military, you leave an operation and if you survived and you completed the operation, people are like, great, that's fantastic. Nobody's going to go, how did they make you feel during that raid or during that fire mission or something like that? Nobody cares. It's, did you do it? Yes or no, and minimize casualties. So, we all have emotional intelligence. We just have to activate it and utilize it. And that's the thing that people coming from the military start to learn when they enter the civilian world.
That's
good. I think you shared something recently, Adam, about engagement with the people you work with, engagement with an audience, getting quick wins to build that trust. I wonder if you wanted to share a little bit more on, I guess if I had to put a wrapper around it, the connection aspect of all of that and how that can lead to success.
I love the term quick wins because we're not looking for this giant win. We're not looking to win the World Series in one interaction with somebody. We have to make these little micro movements forward in our relationships, regardless of what that interaction looks like. Anytime you meet somebody, talk to them either virtually, in person, electronically, with voice, whatever it might be, you've got to start creating wins. And those wins bond that relationship even further. Whether or not you want the relationship to continue, after that transaction or not, you've got to create wins in order to accomplish things with people. So, I mean, the reality is anytime we have an interaction with somebody, whether or not it's a face-to-face, whether or not it's down the barrel of a gun or it's shaking hands, we want to create an outcome that fits the mission, but also fits the relationship. And the best way to do that is to start building with those tiny little wins. That might be a simple yes. It might be a smile and a handshake. It might just be a greeting. It might be a compliment. Hey, I like your shoes, Michael, whatever it could be. But the reality is, however many quick wins we can start piling on each other, the closer we get to that big win.
Yeah, John and I have shared, and I probably learned this through John, the getting 1% better every day, whether that's on your own or in collaboration with someone, and doing it through varying degrees of hard, whatever that thing is a good bonding mechanism. And the more, I mean, we've just lived it, the more you're able to do that with the people you're doing something with, the stronger that connection gets.
Yep.
And it's a pretty special feeling when you've developed that cohesiveness with those individuals.
Totally. Yeah. If we can make things a collaborative environment and we win together, I mean, that's so much better than just one winning and the other not.
Yeah, and the 1% is so achievable, right? You're talking about quick wins. It doesn't have to be an Everest moment every time. It can be something simple, but is progress, incremental progress toward your goal. And those compound over time. I think it was James Clear who sort of puts the math behind that, and it turns out it's orders of magnitude larger if you just focus on those small wins. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, Atomic Habits, James Clear's got some great insight in that. I'll tell you a really good one when he takes looking at those little bitty wins, putting things together, is Darren Hardy, The Compound Effect.
Okay.
Great book. He's a good friend of mine, and he lives it. I'll tell you, I've known the guy for decades, and he lives the compound effect, and it's blatant in all of his successes that it continues to build up.
That's awesome.
Adam, as Michael and I know, and so many of our guests reiterate for us, and I know you will too, the entrepreneur spirit you don't just wake up one day and think, I'm going to be an entrepreneur today. It's something that's ingrained in you very early on. And you mentioned your dad was in a service as well. And I imagine you've got that entrepreneur spirit very early on based on your surroundings. And then, being in the military and SWAT, you're kind of pacifying those things until you get to a certain point. But talk about the early days and what are you seeing that kind of, can you look back and say there was a trigger moment that got you thinking that there's more to just punching in and out on a time clock and working for the man or working for the system? You're doing stuff on the side. When did that start for you?
That's a great question. I'll tell you, by the way, I did not come from an entrepreneurial family. And when I was growing up, being an entrepreneur was very taboo. I will say my grandfather owned a vacuum cleaner store, but he was also a police officer. So he had a side gig. I never really put two and two together that, all right, this guy's an entrepreneur. And he passed away when I was pretty young. But my dad got into law enforcement. He did 33 years with the federal government. And he was never entrepreneurial. I mean, to this day, he's very, very structured, very command and control. When I left law enforcement full time, he's like, are you sure you want to do that? I think you have a secure place that you're at and you're successful there. So why screw it up? I'm like, I'm going to screw things up so I can see if I can get better. So
nice.
I started my entrepreneurial ventures when I was really young. My brother and I had, like everybody else, we had a lawn mowing company. We always sold things, just kind of dabbled that way. And in the late 80s, early 90s, I thought, this internet thing might be real. So I started an online business in the late 80s, early 90s, selling police and government supplies on the internet. So I had like an early tactical supply website And I was able to supply a lot of my friends in the tactical community with, different equipment needs that they had and give them a discount. And had I kept that going, it'd probably be one of the biggest on the planet to this day. But I shut that down and started the security consulting firm. But I always knew I wanted to do more and make more money than, when I left law enforcement, I was a lieutenant. And I thought I can do better than this financially and provide more for my family and create generational wealth. And I'd never been trained on money. How do you invest? I had a 401k and that's about it, but I didn't know what it meant. So I started studying that. 2 great books, Richest Man in Babylon and Think and Grow Rich. You read those 2 books and you start figuring out, okay, I can do more, become more, make more, save more, grow it. So it just was something that I uncovered as I grew instead of something that intrinsically lived in my household, because we never talked about anything like that when I was growing up, but I eventually found it somehow.
Did you seek it out because it was missing from your household, or is it just an interest of yours? Like what sort of caused you to want to explore that more if it wasn't sort of part of the talk track at the family dinner?
Honestly, Michael, I don't know. And I had a great life growing up.
Yeah.
I had nothing to complain about. My parents took very good care of us. We had a great roof over our heads and, dinner on the table every night, things like that. It was, like the picture perfect family in the 70s and 80s growing up.
Okay.
So I'm honestly not sure what pushed me to go out and go, I want to continue to disrupt things and see if I can make more money doing that. But somehow I got bit by the bug, and now it's pretty common to say, I want to be an entrepreneur. You've got
Yeah.
YouTubers and, people on TikTok or whatever, and then kids starting stores when they're 8 or 9 or 10 years old, making tens of thousands of dollars a year. So I'm like,
It's
shit, why
incredible.
didn't I do that earlier?
I know.
Well, that hunch you had about the internet, I don't know if it's going to live up to your expectations. It might be, a passing fad, but we'll see. Verdict is still out. So
Yeah.
tell me, the transition, as you know, and I know, and a lot of our listeners know, the transition out of the military or something dynamic, such as SWAT or service for our nation. It's very dynamic, and then it can immediately go to something very static if we choose to. You obviously chose to go the entrepreneurial route, but tell me about that transition from SWAT into the civilian sector full time.
And it's funny, everybody asks me, "Oh, how'd you do that? What'd you do? What skills do you have in law enforcement or military to take into the civilian world?" I'm like, "All of them. You got all the
Yeah.
skills." And they go, "Well, what are they?" And I said, "Well, you meet people, you don't know them, you meet them, and you have to get to know them using your interpersonal communication skills
Sure.
that you've developed
Yeah.
over time. Discover their challenges and problems, agree that those are their challenges and problems, and then help them fix those." So it's all the same. We got somebody we don't know with a problem. Let's figure it out together and help them solve that problem. That's all business is solving people's challenges or providing them with some sort of a pleasure, which is the opposite of the problem. So I just broke it down to that. And I thought, this is not complicated, folks. So how do I take my law enforcement skills, which, like I said, I learned sales buying and selling drugs on the street corner. So I thought, if I could do this, there's a lot at stake here. There's people's freedoms and lives. I can go sell whatever I need to in business. This is not difficult, and I'm not afraid. Nobody's getting shot. There's nothing on fire. Nothing's blowing up. So, I mean, what's to stop me? And then you just learn every single day. Go out and find something to learn instead of wasting your time with stupid, now it's scrolling on your phone or whatever it is. Go gain something and then deliver it to people and call it value, and they'll appreciate that. So in its simplest form, it's not complicated when you look at it, but it's also, there's so many distractions that prevent us from doing it on a daily basis. And you mentioned the compound effect. The compound effect that creates success in business is the same one that creates success in weight loss or in relationships or whatever. It's just doing the right thing every single day repeatedly.
And how was the pivot? So you went from SWAT into real estate among many other options you could have chosen. Tell me a little bit, or maybe I don't have the timeline right, if it was coming out of SWAT into something else and then into real estate, but I'm curious how you landed in the world of real estate at some point.
So it's actually real estate franchising. So Remax is not a real estate company. It's a real estate brand that franchises real estate companies. And when you look at what franchising is, and for those not attuned to franchising, I encourage you to go, fire it into ChatGPT, what's franchising, things like that, and see what it says. But ultimately, it's a business system that has a brand and an operating system around it. And if you have the brand is the balloon for Remax, the red, white, and blue balloon. And then the business system is opening a real estate office that hires real estate agents that help the consumer buy and sell residential and commercial properties. So ultimately, you're helping build the business. It's a business that builds businesses. And that's really what I enjoyed, was taking that concept. And I mean, I'm not a real estate agent. I'm somebody who likes to build businesses, is the way that I look at what I do. And you take a brand, get people's interest, and then get them to share their challenges with you and help overcome those challenges based upon your business framework for money. And that's how life works. So, it just comes down to, what's the business you want to be in? It could be cleaning trash cans. Great. People are like, ew, cleaning trash cans. That's terrible. Well, a lot of people have trash cans that are dirty. So how do you build a business around that? Throw a brand on it, and voila, there's a business opportunity. Go take the actions on a daily basis, and you'll start making money doing it. Fell into real estate because I saw a news article about a real estate agent in Aurora, Colorado, just east of where I was living. And it was, that agent was victimized. And I thought, that's what I do. I teach police academy classes, SWAT schools, sniper schools. I teach people how not to get killed doing their job through a series of framework: awareness, avoidance, de-escalation, and response. And I thought, why don't I deliver this to the real estate space? They loved it. Instantly started making good money doing it. And then Remax is like, hey, we want to partner with you and help people through this. I thought, great. Corporate contract, even better. I had known the founder of Remax before that, and he's like, I love what you're doing. Why don't you just come work for me full time and shut down your security consulting firm, shut down your, we'll continue to do the safety programs, and then leave law enforcement. I'm like, okay, that's a big jump, but okay, why not? I'll take the risk. And then every day attack it the best you can. And if you attack something really, really hard and focused every single day, you're going to pass everybody up. You're going to excel beyond what the majority of society is doing, and you'll find success in it. If you just coast, good enough is good enough, okay, you'll be mediocre at it, but I wanted to be the best. So I worked my way up that way.
So you're about to make a trade based on a friend's text. But which you do you listen to? Is it, we could buy a house in Tulum? Get optioning those options. We could lose everything. Or let's do a little research. Get your head in the trade and make the investment decision that's right for you. Learn more at finra.org/trade-smart.
Friday on NBC, Jimmy Fallon and Bozoma St. John host the incredible new competition show.
I hired 10 creatives from all walks of life. They will be battling it out to see who can impress the world's biggest brands.
This is a huge opportunity.
This is the battle for the next big idea.
This is not play.
We're spending millions of dollars.
I'm so excited to embark on this adventure with all of you.
May the best idea win!
On Brand with Jimmy Fallon, Friday on NBC.
So you saw a problem or read about a problem in an article that you could apply your skills to, that then allow you to create something to solve that problem. And through the course of solving that, you found yourself inside of I think it's maybe the world's largest, if not one of the largest real estate franchises, and worked your way up to CEO.
That's exactly right.
That's awesome. I love it. That is incredible.
And by the way, Mike, it didn't happen overnight, obviously. I mean, it took me, I was there for 18 years. So anybody who's like going, all right, so by, next June month, just over a year, I should be good. I should be CEO by then. No, that's not how it works, folks. I mean, it takes a long time of dedication. The compound effect, we're going to keep going back to that in this. Things don't happen overnight. Things happen to those that stick with it and do a good job sticking with it.
Yeah. The TikTok generation, I think, their expectations are a little bit out of whack when they think, I'm going to become an overnight success by creating an online store and, posting some funny videos. And there are edge cases where certain things happen, but we've sort of lost sight of putting in the work and putting in the time and having the patience to get to that point where you want to go in life. And hopefully, the more people talk about it. I think if someone famous like Steve Jobs or somebody said, it took me 10 years to become an overnight success. And, it's very true. If you want it to be durable, if it's something that you want to be durable, it's going to take time.
That's it. And you're going to fail a lot.
Yeah.
But keep going.
Exactly.
Well, and that's the premise of Tipping Point, right? With Malcolm Gladwell. Talks about, 10,000 hours. Adam, I want to go back. There's two things I want to talk about. One is, your ability to start while you're gathering information. A lot of really successful entrepreneurs that we get on the show have that same idea. I'm just going to go. I don't know everything, but I'm going to spend my time figuring it out. And that's in contrast to a lot of people who want to gather all that information. And the more they gather, they see them. So I had just had this conversation this weekend. People that gather, they see themselves get to a point that in their mind, they see themselves get to a point and then they're ready. But what I see happen is they sit there and gather and gather and gather. And the more they gather, they realize they're farther away from the launch sequence than they were when they started. So I love that about you and getting into Remax and being asked to come in, and you're like, well, I've never done this before, but there's pieces that I can glean from my past that would probably get me in the door.
Totally. It's great that you say that because everybody feels safe when they're getting ready. The risk is the execution. And everybody's like, all right, this has got to be perfect. But that's a bunch of garbage. Done is better than perfect.
Yes, 100%.
So you're going to have to rebuild the airplane while you're in flight. So you might as well go get the airplane so it could take off and then start rebuilding while you're in flight. Because plan A, and you guys know, plan A never is the one that you end up executing. You start plan A, make contact with the enemy, and then everything changes. So, the enemy in this is the unknown in business. You make a plan, you go and you implement something, and people are like, it might have sounded better in your head than it does in my head. So that's when great, test your markets, figure out what do you want to do, ask questions, survey your people. In fact, survey your people before you even build your minimally viable product. There's a thing called the MVP, minimally viable product. And anytime you're going to launch something, don't just go build it going, this is going to be the best ever. And then launch it because it's not. It's good. You're going to be like, oh, that wasn't quite the best ever. So now I'm going to build the best ever. But if you would have asked a few questions ahead of time, you'd made a couple adjustments and had something a little bit better. But ask the questions and launch. And then fix it. And I'm guilty of not doing that, just like anybody else, because I want to put good quality to my name. But the reality is, when I wanted to get into security consulting and I wanted to get into real estate agent safety programs and things like that, I booked a date of my first presentation and I'm like, oh geez, I need to build a presentation now. And I built it and delivered it and everybody's like, this is great. And I looked at the questions I was asked and I made adjustments, and next one, they're like, oh, this is great. But I knew it was better than the first one. Just the first one was acceptable. And they're like, we haven't had this. So fantastic. Second one, third one, fourth one, they got better. Reiterate and relaunch.
Adam, that's an amazing segue to my second question for you. And I know we have a lot of people that listen to this show that are in sales. And so I want to go back to that point where you talked about selling drugs, got you into the mindset to it eventually got you into Remax. For me, it was selling wrapping paper for my school and popcorn for Boy Scouts. And now I sell airplanes, right? People see these big, sexy things, airplanes, cars, houses and they think, I'm just selling widgets. But as you saw and I've seen and you just talked about, you get out there and you start with a pitch, and that pitch is horrible, right? And a door slams in your face, or a deal goes wrong, or you don't get the deal. And then you keep refining and perfecting and getting, and then all of a sudden you wake up talking about the 1% better, or just dirty reps is what I like to call them. You've gone through enough dirty reps, and then you're like, holy cow, this is pretty easy because you've seen enough rejection. You get used to it. So talk to me about the drug selling while you were in SWAT, and then how that transformed you for down the road.
Right. It's interesting when you start looking at what failed and what succeeded, and military, SWAT, whatever it might be. There's always a debrief that goes on after something. What can we do better? And if you have that reflection, you can create the improvement. Because if you start seeing the trends in your failures, shame on you if you're not fixing them. So if we haven't sat down and explored our sales process, or even if, take your sales process and record your sales calls and then fire those into AI. I mean, that's the latest trend, folks. I mean, it's this thing called AI, and you can do it for free. And if you record all your calls, then take all the scripts and dump them into AI and say, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? It'll give you suggestions as to how to improve yourself.
Yep.
1% improvement, Kaizen. It's aggregation of marginal gain. If you look at the British cycling team, Sir David Brailsford, and how he took a failing team and made them world champions over and over again, was just taking the little bitty things that went wrong and evaluate those. So do a debrief, postmortem, whatever you want to call it. But the reality is all those that become successful, take a look at professional athletes. They always watch game tape. What I do right, what I do wrong, what are the little tiny things that I could just change very simply that would make a big difference. And it's this thing called humility. If we don't have humility, we're never going to get better. And if we have humility, we're going to go, here's the best response to somebody saying, oh, if you make this adjustment, you'll get better. Here's what you say. Thank you. That's it. And voila, you've paid them in courtesy and the currency for asking for more, and they'll come back and they'll help you do it again. So you're absolutely right, John. I love those dirty reps. But if we never look at those dirty reps, then we just wasted our time.
I love that you mentioned the debrief. So it reinforces what I've talked about flights, and now people don't think I'm full of crap. But I always say the most beneficial portion, you plan, you brief, you execute, you debrief. And that debrief is the most important part of the whole exercise. And some people think it's being out there training and landing and flying and doing all that stuff. No, it's the debrief. It's watching the tapes. It shows you what you're missing on the peripheral. And man, so powerful. And we do that, even Michael and I, after a show wraps, we talk about what we talked about and then what we didn't talk about. And it gets us ready for the next one. So thank you for mentioning that, because that's amazing.
It's a gift. The feedback is a gift from the people who actually want to see you succeed. And we're experiencing that in the process of building the product. You have this idea, and if you don't sort of let it out of the barn for people to hear, whether you have the product to show in a prototype or an MVP to begin with, but you want to get that feedback loop going so that you're actually building something somebody wants. And when you go through that ideation through a customer discovery process and get the feedback and maybe get some design partners along the way to say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about building. Can you build it with me? And they'll go down the bumpy road with you to hopefully get you as best a product as possible to go out into the wild. That really minimizes your risk as much as possible when you're going out there into the world.
Well said, guys. And if I can add something, some of the gold in the feedback loop is taking the reports from your last couple of feedback loops and reviewing those on the current operation and figure out, did you actually fix these things?
Yeah.
Because if all you're doing is adding problems to problems, you're moving backwards. But if you're chipping away at those things, you're going to continue to find new opportunities as you make adjustments moving forward. You might find opportunities where your adjustments didn't work, but you're likely to find opportunities because your adjustments did work.
And Adam, it's important as you get that feedback to have a bias for action to make improvements to the things that you're doing. Because if you're just sitting there and then you're sort of wallowing in your misery that you didn't get it right out of the gate, that's just a complete waste of time to really getting to where you want to be and delivering value to the market. So, yeah, 100% spot on.
Adam, let's take a little bit of a pivot and talk not so much about the entrepreneurship, but now about taking all those lessons and now you're able to enact those or able to teach other people how to recognize what they're not seeing around them. So you're helping coach them. You're being that voice on the sidelines that's showing them what they're missing outside their periphery. Talk about your coaching program or coaching abilities.
You bet. I love this opportunity because basically you're helping people hold up the mirror. You're not necessarily telling them what they're doing wrong as a coach. You're helping them discover where they can improve as a coach. Because nobody wants to be chastised for anything. Nobody wants to feel like they're attacked or anything of that nature. They want to feel like people are helping them explore the opportunities for improvement. So when you take a look at, we all have egos. You can take a look at how our egos are impacted by feedback. And I hate having somebody tell me what I'm doing wrong just as much as anybody else does. But I have to have this incredible self-awareness of saying they saw something that I didn't. And this is as Michael was saying, the gift that you're receiving from them. Everybody wants to be a coach because they don't want to have the responsibility of doing the action themselves. They want to just critique it, which I would say, unless you've done it, don't try and coach it. And there are some that are really good at coaching without doing, where they can understand human psychology and body mechanics and things like that others don't understand. But realistically, once you've done it and you've failed at it, you're a little more intuitive, I think, at noticing challenges that people have come up with. But ultimately, we all need a coach. And what's a coach? A coach is somebody that we pay to help us uncover our opportunities and hold us accountable to taking the actions of moving forward. There are a couple types of accountability. There's coaching, which I just mentioned, paying somebody. There's mentoring, which is not free coaching. Mentoring is somebody who shares their experiences with you, so you understand maybe some different opportunities that you might have. And how do you pay them? Because you're not paying them with money generally. You pay them with trying the things that you're learning from them and then reporting back. So they want to have the satisfaction of helping grow you up like a big brother, big sister might, something like that. And then there's masterminds. And those masterminds are peer accountability. Think of it as kind of almost pure coaching, but you're in a room full of others that are trying to get better themselves, and they're willing to look at, from their perspective, what you're doing and help give you feedback. And again, the answer to all of these things is thank you, and to try to get better by making the adjustments that people suggest. So I'm a big fan of coaching. I've started coaching some CEOs. I'm very selective in who I coach and how I coach because I want to be able to make the biggest impact possible. But ultimately, it comes down to I've had 6 coaches myself, and I truly feel that my success in life, and I've had quite a few failures also. We are all going to, but having coaches has helped me grow from all of those.
Yeah, I've had a couple coaches myself, actually John being one of them in my life, and they've been incredibly helpful to improve upon things that I wanted to improve upon in the moment, and have had some durable effects through that process. And it's funny. I don't know what happens where I don't know, maybe grow this sense of independence. And at some point in life, we're like, well, I don't need coaches and past coaching. But when you're a kid, you love to be coached because that's how you get better in sports and school and everything else. And then you're like, wait a minute, I want to be independent and do all these things on my own and break away from mom and dad and all that sort of stuff. And then you're sort of in this independence phase. And then you're like, you know what? I could probably use some advice from somebody. I'm trying to climb the corporate ladder. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to do something new, whatever it may be. And you start to rethink coaching again. But maybe you don't know sort of how to navigate that. So it's an interesting journey that people take and find themselves in the coaching world at some point again.
Sometimes it's that big fat ego that Adam mentioned,
Yeah.
that gets in the way, right? And you think, well, I'm going to learn what I need to learn on the side or on my own. And Adam, as you know, having 6 coaches, and Michael and I, having people speak into your life on any of those levels. I've been a part of 3 different masterminds. I've had a lot of mentors and some coaches, but it's usually when you've got the skin in the game, right? The financial commitment, or the financial and the time commitment, and you've got somebody looking you right in the eyeballs saying, "Hey, I see how you need to change, or I recommend how you should change." And then when you come back and you're sitting face to face with them again and you say, "I didn't do it." So
That's not a good feeling.
that's the
That's
hardest
not a good
thing,
feeling.
right? And so that's where that skin in the game and being intimate with the person that's speaking into you, helping you develop, is highly, highly recommended. Yeah.
Great points, John. Here's a little secret that I learned about coaching. If you want to be coached and you want to do really good at being coached, go take a class on how to be a coach. And it's fascinating because you start to understand the psychology behind what causes somebody to be coachable and what causes them to implement, changes and create outcomes in their life. But I'm a big fan of, all right, if I want to be really good at something, I want to go learn how to be an instructor for that, so that I can learn the dynamics of, like John, you want to be a really good pilot, go learn how to be a flight instructor, that type of thing. So you can troubleshoot the challenges that you're going through independently. So I look at it as going, call it 10 degrees overboard or something like that in what you're doing. But yeah, the whole premise of being coached is being coachable and understanding how to fix things, as opposed to just letting somebody tell you, change this about yourself. Because a lot of coaches aren't all that great, or they don't mesh with you. There are a lot that do and are fantastic, but you will end up trying out different coaches who maybe their lifespan for you is only 3 months or 6 months or something. Others will last years, but ultimately it comes down to who's having the greatest impact on helping you improve.
And I think that comes back, Adam, to your point about humility. If you are humble enough to admit that you do have limits when it comes to some of these things that you're not so good at or want to get better at right now, finding that right fit makes it all the more important, because there's going to be a tremendous amount of trust between the two parties to be open and vulnerable and learn from each other so that you can achieve the things that you want to achieve.
Totally.
Adam, let's pivot. Helping others break barriers, build momentum, and lead with purpose. We said it in the intro, but that's kind of the premise of your book, Start with a Win. I'm always amazed at entrepreneurs that we have on the show that have a bag full of responsibilities, and then oh yeah, by the way, I wrote a book. Tell us about that process. Tell us about the driver for putting something out there, and how it's gone so far.
It's a huge pain in the butt, John. I'll just start with that. I am not an author. So I thought, I want to write a book. And I
love it.
sat down, I outlined, and everybody's like, I'm going to write a book. I'm like, no, you're not. You're going to put all your ideas on paper, and then you're going to hire somebody to come in and actually make it a book. And that's what happened with me. I got a call from a publisher who said, do you want to write a book? We will publish your book. And a lot of times you go looking for a publisher. I was lucky enough to have one call me because they were listening to my podcast, Start with a Win, the same name as my book. And they said, wow, this guy's got an interesting story. There's a book in there someplace. So they called me up, said, write a book. And I signed the big, 32-page contract with the publisher after I had my friend who wrote a book with this company had his attorney review it because he'd been down that road before. And I wrote this manuscript, and then I sent it in to them, and they call me back and they go, "So, we like your ideas and your concept, but you're not an author." This sounds like a police report a little bit. So I thought, yeah, that's probably why I did 11 years writing police reports. But ultimately, I hired somebody to come in and clean the whole thing up. So the people called ghostwriters, and she had a great foundation, and she took everything that I put together in my voice. We had meetings like once or twice a week, depending on which week it was, talking about this. Took another 6 months to take my manuscript and turn it into something that you would actually want to read. And then send it back to the publisher, and they're like, "Fantastic. This is great. We'll publish it." So I would say ultimately it comes down to hire a professional. Don't think you're good at everything, because you're not. I'll be the first one to say I am terrible at being an author, but I found some really good people to help me around that. And you have a book, and it's something you can give your kids. It's something you can use as a business card. It's great for people to understand who you are, what you're about.
Yep.
You can upload it into AI, and AI instantly has a great foundation about you because they have your life story. You don't have to tell them 250 pages of what happened. So, it's a fun thing to do, and it's great to have, but hire somebody, please. Save yourself the trouble. That's just my advice.
Was there something from the creative process of writing the book that you sort of took away from the experience?
Yeah, a great deal of humility, Michael.
There wasn't any like newfound insights about, I didn't even know I had any creativity, but now it has inspired me to do this, that, or the other thing, or think maybe a different way about life.
I learned how to tell stories because a
Okay.
book is not necessarily about data. It's about the stories of how you learned what you learned.
Wow.
And the ghostwriter helped me understand that. And there's some great storytelling educators out there. I mean, I've got some really good friends that teach storytelling on the big stage. But ultimately, it comes down to how do you create a good story? Because we as human beings think in stories. That's how you're going to sell your product. That's how you're going to grow your business. That's how you're going to inspire others to accomplish things, is with a story. So that was probably the biggest thing I learned, Michael, was how do you take those experiences in your life and turn them into a good story?
I love it.
And you mentioned, Adam, that you also have a podcast, also named Start with the Win. Give us a little insight on that and what people could catch if they were to tune in. I mean, I know our podcast is top on their list, but if they had time in their day to add another one, what could they glean from you?
Yeah, I mean, if they were looking for something other than Second Act to listen to, I would certainly say check out Start with a Win. Ultimately, I interview, some of it is a solo cast where I talk about a business concept or a life principle or something like that has helped me create success. But a lot of times it is unpacking the historical aspect or the story of an entrepreneur growing a business. Could be from the real estate space, could be from the franchise space, small business, things of that nature. I've also had some larger scale business people on there, but realistically, there are probably 3 or 4 concepts that you can take out of each 20 to 25-minute segment that has to do with the human psychology of creating success in business and in your personal life.
I know we're starting to wind down, John, but we can't let Adam leave without sharing his practical advice or insights for our guests as we wind things down. Adam, all of our shows end with our guests sharing some wisdom that they want to leave our audience with as they are contemplating or start their second act in life. What would you want to leave our audience with?
His advice is just going to be listen to his podcast.
Right. After you're done listening to this one.
After
of
that.
course. But yeah, there's a few things that I learned in my transition to my second act in life. And probably one of the biggest was you have to be the consummate student. You have to be learning something every single day. I believe that leaders learn and learners lead. When you learn every day, you're not just doing something for yourself, because you have to be a sponge and soak everything up. But and one of my great mentors told me when I was making my movement to the second act, I said, big piece of advice do you have? And he said, be a sponge. I'm like, oh, great. I can go learn all day long. I learned how to learn in the military, and I learned how to learn in law enforcement because it's all about continuous education. He goes, it's only half of it. I go, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, if you look at a sponge, it soaks things up, but then you squeeze it, it gives things back. Your goal is to take and soak those things up and then give those things back to everybody that you are in contact with. But you have to give them back as value. So you have to be able to transition that information into something that they can absorb themselves in order to make their life better. And then the more people you help make their life better, make their business better, solve a problem, overcome a challenge, things like that, those people will remember that social currency that you paid them, and they will pay you back. It's called the law of reciprocity. The more you give to them, and you're learning every day, you're soaking up and giving back every day. The more you give to them, whether or not you know it, the more they want to give back to you, probably by doing business with you or by, bringing you into their organization to help others grow like you're growing. But ultimately, it's about being a sponge.
It's really good. That's awesome. Really good.
Adam, when you're talking about being a sponge, I think back to one of my flight instructor days, and I think some of the best instructors, i.e. coaches or mentors that I've ever been associated with are people that can take information and distribute it out in ways that people can comprehend differently. So you've got somebody that's a super fast learner. You only have to tell them once. They're going to take it and they're going to run with it and grow, right? There's others that learn by repetition. So they've got to have it spoon-fed over and over and over until they get it. And then there's so many different ways of learning, but those people that are the true sponges and give back, they know their audience. They're able to distill that information in different ways. And it makes it so much more powerful when they can do that, because not only do they now know that information up and down, left and right, but they can recognize who they're giving it to and give it out. And that's the true power right there. So yeah, it's amazing.
Love that.
Well, Adam, man, thank you for your time.
Yep.
Your time is incredibly valuable. We know that. Thank you for being on the show and kind of giving us your story and the trajectory that you had from the Marine Corps on, and talking a little bit about your coaching and your book. For listeners who want to learn more about you and what you're doing now, maybe about your coaching, or, just learn a little bit more about who you are, where can they do that the best?
So they can find me at adamcontos.com, and I'm also on all the socials at adamcontosceo. So happy to connect with everybody. Shoot me a LinkedIn message or anything like that if you're interested in executive coaching. I also do teach every now and then at University of Denver, teach executive education, mostly executive presence, how to look, sound, and act like a boss and get stuff done that way. So I'd love to connect with anybody on the pod that is looking to make themselves better. And thanks for having me. Also, you can sign up for my weekly newsletter at adamcontos.com.
Busy man, got his fingers on everything. So
yeah, this was a lot of fun today, Adam. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure for being here. Thanks to all your listeners, and thanks to you guys, John and Michael, for having me on the show.
It's our pleasure. Wow, it's powerful. Well, Michael, great job.
I guess that's a wrap for today.
Yeah.
Awesome job, John. This was a great conversation, and I guess until next time.
Yeah, we'll see ya.
See ya.
The Second Act with Michael and John stars Michael Newborn and John Ballinger. The podcast is produced by Seltzer Kings. For more information on the show, check out michaelandjohn.com, or if you'd like to get involved in the conversation, give the guys a shout on their socials at The Second Act Movement on most platforms. Thanks for listening.
Seltzer Kings
Podcasts.